You know, it all works together. We live in a materialist culture, under a materialist ontological paradigm, with material concerns. And the way over materialism, the way out of it, the escape from it, is not merely about non-consumerism. Most people think that's what's meant by material. Oh, we're so attached to material things and the goods of the world, and that's all true to an extent, but when I say material things, I mean you are attached psychologically to the material as a value, as something of value. It's a fundamental fallen human neuroses. You libidinize the objects of the world, even though you know they're made of quantum superposition. They're made of what? You value it because it's outside you, and then of course in its ultimate form it becomes something like Marx's commodity fetishism, where it literally becomes this fetish object of the mind. The way out of materialism is actually a psychological change. It's not about feeling negative about how superficial you are. It's about not being superficial enough to a certain extent. It's about not seeing the surface and seeing what's behind, and implanting behind the surface all this meaning that's not really there. Extract from the world the data that's actually given to you as being the interesting thing, the colors, the shapes, just the experience of it as a sensory phenomenon. Bust out of materialism in the sense of bust out of holding to metaphysical visions that undergird your consciousness, which has you fetishizing objects. The depth of this in your brain is deep. I'm not lying. I've been through this. Your mind is literally attached to the world in a material way, through material concepts. You have to just break out through both, just personal seeing, observing of what's there, and also conceptual understanding of the fact that it's not really real in the way that you wanted to think it is. It's not real, but it's not real in the way you think it is. And there's much more freedom than we realize, but we're attached to the material. Materialism, when it comes crashing down, will not just be one aspect of the human experience or mind. It's going to be the whole system that has propped us up since the beginning. Since the fall, we've been material. We've had moments where we've gotten out of it, or struggled to get out of it, with religion and poetry, but we have to just, you have to just realize, first and foremost, that it is experience that is the thing that matters. It is experience that matters. Because you're a celestial movie being recorded with your life. And all its quality is actually far more about your feeling than it is about things that you're perceiving. Your ego is afraid to let go of the material attachments because the material attachments allow a nice feedback system for your emotional systems to give you pleasure responses. You developed this since you were a kid. You get a lot of money, boom, pleasure response, just playing it. You know? It's very difficult to sever that tie and then reattach the pleasure responses to evaluations about experience, because that's where the pedal meets the metal, but it just requires you to rearrange your cognitive structure. And of course, spiritual people really get it, obviously. Mindfulness, what does that mean? That means that you're worried about your present experience. On many scales, it can be narrative scales, it can be just purely present, as an aesthetic phenomena in the moment. I mean, there are lots of ways to think about it, but what it is your experience. That's what's important. We need to reclaim for ourselves the primacy of experience as the ultimate barometer of value. And not the primacy of your own experience per se, because that can get easily selfish. No, but not when you really get it, because you realize that the thing that you're seeking is actually the transformation of the spirit into love, which is always a direction outside you. And you can get it by just seeing what's there and not libidinizing the material. What you do. Society is deeply enmeshed in really bad mental practices. Partially because there's no way to have the correct mental practices in the kind of world we live in. There's no way that modern capitalism could just continue in the way that it does if everyone suddenly had spiritual transformation. It tells you something. It tells you about what the modern world is keeping at bay, what the modern world is pushing aside, what the modern world doesn't want to see or look at, what the modern world doesn't want to endorse. Because it's a threat to the modern world. It's a threat to your ego. And it's a threat to your sense of safety, and it's a threat to a lot of things. But it's really a threat to nothing, because it's the truth. And the truth will out. And the time is coming when it's going to reach ahead. Because freedom wants to escape from the traps of materialism. And so do you. Maybe you just don't know it yet.